Alrighty, so they are giving us a free deer holy relic, which means that you can use it for either fairies or goddesses at the moment during this next week. Actually, it's 2 weeks worth of a login event. You're going to be getting enough materials to build an entire relic. So I just wanted to kind of go over the options that you have and what I would recommend, what I wouldn't recommend, because there's a couple of decent options here. I have a couple of the deer holy relics, so I feel like I can give you somewhat of the information that I have from building some of them at the moment. Obviously, a lot of the fairy ones don't really seem that worth it to me. I'm kind of interested to see what Gloxenia and obviously Festival Kings end up being sometime in the future. Regular Elaine doesn't have one yet either. So those are the only options that you have that are fairies that don't have one. I do, as far as fairies, only have this New Wings Elaine. And I actually, like, it sounds kind of like a meme, but I actually really enjoy this one a lot. So it increases all enemies' damage taken by 30% while they have the shock debuff, which she puts on shock because she's a fairy and it works with her passive, and if they have this debuff on that she has and a fairy attacks, they get shock debuff. I actually really like it if you use the character or you like using newer Chad Festival King. I honestly think that she's a pretty cool character to have one for. Definitely don't know if I can recommend it for like the majority of the player base, because obviously you're gonna have to like build up the character and buy her outfits and stuff like that, and that's probably not fun if you don't already have them for some reason. So yeah, I honestly don't know that I can recommend any of the fairy relics, if I'm being completely honest. I've seen people use all of them, and I mean, Garrod's is kind of sort of interesting because it makes her sort of like, what's her name? Athena from the KOF collab. So depletes 2 orbs from the ultimate move gauges of all enemies at the end of the turn when an allied hero defeats an enemy during an allied turn, and it works in the subslot just like Athena does. So they literally just made like an Athena sort of like substitute character out of her, which is fine because I mean she really doesn't have a whole lot of use regardless. So that's kind of cool. Actually, hers doesn't even take the river source or whatever it's called. I think it's called the river source. It just uses the regular materials, so none of the jars of, you know, water or whatever you want to call those things are. The Helbram one also doesn't take them. The only one that I was any sort of interested in was regular Skinny King, and it's only because I use him as a link most of the time, and every once in a while I'll use Red King for like his passive in the back slot, but it's not very often, so I don't know that I can really justify making it, so I'm not going to be making that one. I think if I wasn't already determined to make the one that I'm going to, which we'll go over in a minute, I probably would make this one out of them, or out of the free materials, just because it's the only one that sort of kind of gives me any sort of use. Next up, we have goddesses, and there's only 2 goddesses that don't have it yet, which are Elat and Old School Liz. So you have a pretty decent amount of options here. Obviously, this is where the actual like decent relics are. All of the archangels have a holy relic at this point, which is really good. I have to say, if you have Ludo and you already have him invested into and you don't have the relic yet, it does give him quite a bit of extra CC. So because his holy relic, if you don't know, just greatly increases his basic stats. So he does have that going for him. He definitely gets a lot more CC. Let me put his actual gear on so you can see he's at 67k CC, and mine's 6/6, and I have all 15% rolls. I think maybe some of the like base stats or whatever could be a little tiny bit higher, but for the most part all of it's really high, so he's not going to get much higher than that. There are a couple of characters in the game who can beat that CC, but not too many, so I think you can still get pretty decent value out of him, but then again, it's a character that you have to have completely invested into. If you don't have that already, he's an okay link. Don't know that I can really recommend the Holy Relic. I thought Margaret's Holy Relic was going to be a lot cooler, but if you don't know, for each Archangel on the battlefield, it increases her damage dealt by 5% and decreases damage taken by 5%. So it's okay. Obviously, you need to run like a full Archangel team to really get the most use out of it. It looks pretty cool, have to say. It's not like the worst looking Holy Relic I've ever seen. but I'm not a huge fan of it. I feel like I don't actually get much use out of it because I don't run like full Archangel teams. If you do, might be a good suggestion for you. The old school Tarmiel and Sariel, I'm not a huge fan of Tarmiel's. It definitely makes him a little bit tankier, which is kind of nice. But I think this old school Sariel, Red Sariel, has probably the I don't want to say the best relic, but I think his does the most for him. But then again, in today's meta, you can't really use this too much in PvP because he doesn't, he can crit, but it's, it's not as much as you would want it to, so you're not going to be getting these stacks maybe as fast as you want. I don't know. He's just kind of an old, outdated unit at this point, so it's not as good as you would want it to be. I think out of all of the Holy Relics, the two new Archangels probably have the better ones to go for, because Green Sariel is very nice because when you put up the counter, he gets a 20% attack related stats, or 20% just attack, not attack related stats buff when he gets attacked, or when the enemy uses a skill on the hero. So it could not be an attack, it could just be like a debuff or whatever the case may be. And then when inflicting damage to an enemy using skills or counters, recovers HP by 15% of damage dealt. So it can make him a little bit more tanky, sort of just helping him regain HP, but it's not as much as you would really want it to be. But I mean, I want to say, the Liz team, the newer Festival Liz, has become a little bit more interesting now that people are starting to use Green Sariel. So I don't think it's the worst relic. It's definitely not my favorite. I wanted it to be really good because I like counter units and stuff, but I think it's pretty okay. It's not like anything spectacular, but it's probably a solid option if you're going for any of the Archangels. And then I have to say, for Tarmiel, I actually think that his is very good, because on a character who doesn't have a whole lot of ult control, and the team itself, if you're using him, because you can't use the other Tarmiel who already has sort of an ult, like a take off ultimate gauge card, his is applies an ultimate move disable effect for 2 turns every time an enemy ultimate move gauge reaches 5 orbs or more. So it's basically like the old school like droll tactic, where as soon as their ult gauge gets full, you disable it for 2 turns, which is kind of cool. And I think that it actually ends up helping me more than I would want it to, maybe not more than I would want it to, but it ends up being like a pretty nice thing to have. It ends up being more useful than I expect it to be, which is kind of cool. Obviously it gives him a little bit of extra CC. He's a very good link. Probably a decent choice if you have him. If not, I would probably recommend going for the Green Sariel, of course. And then the 2 newest Holy Relics that are out, besides, actually this newest Liz doesn't have a Holy Relic, I didn't mention that a minute ago. Goddess Elizabeth does have a Holy Relic. I don't really think that Goddess Elizabeth is really all that crazy nowadays, and this one just makes her shield 15% better. So I don't know, that seems okay, I guess, and her shield is probably the most annoying part about her, but unless you're planning on actually using her nowadays, which I've seen some people use her, but I don't think it's like a crazy relic. It's not like the best thing in the world or anything. It's kind of mid, if anything. But Liz Hawk and Base Liz just got their Holy Relics, and I'm not exactly sure about this one. I think that this one's kind of okay. Increases the hero's basic stats by 30% for Liz Hawk. I think that's kind of alright. But at the same time, I don't know. I think it looks kind of cool. Like, it's just a helmet for Hawk. But it's just kind of mediocre. I feel like the only Liz that I ever end up using is this red one, and it's just because I put her in the backline for the Goddess team. But now that we have a new Liz, you can't use her at the same time, and I don't know. I don't ever use Liz Hawks. I know some people get use out of them for like Final Boss or various content like that. So if you use her, you might be able to go for that one. But I am planning on making the one for Base Liz, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's because I have been, sort of watching the new content for Skull and Hati, which is the new Wolves boss. And this Green Liz actually seems to be a very good contender to put on the team, at least for now, until we get a little bit more stuff figured out as far as like what's the best teams to use for that boss. So I'm probably going to try to go ahead and power her up to level 100 before the patch drops. And then I'm one river source away from being able to make this one, but I'm definitely going to grab it as soon as the update drops. I'll be able to farm the deer at that point, so I'll just do one run, grab the one that I need, and then make this, because if you don't know, it increases allies HP related stats by 15%, which is actually pretty good. It's not the craziest in the world, but this character in general is kind of helpful because she has a good heal. Her ultimate increases ultimate move gauge and stuff like that, and it heals, which is really nice. I'm pretty sure this takes off, yeah, removes buffs and cancels stances at level 3, which I doubt you'll get too much use out of. But overall, even though this is a really old character, I feel like it still has a pretty good amount of use. And I already personally have all of the Archangel relics at this point, so for me, the extra relic is kind of just going to be something that I'm going to waste. Not necessarily like waste, but it's going to be for a character that I'm not as interested in, but because I have it, I'll just go ahead and get it because I think it's kind of cool. So we're going to grab that one for my account, but I definitely recommend, if you want to, you can definitely just save it. I don't think that you necessarily have to build one right now. If you want to, you can wait until Gloxinia gets a relic, or the new king gets a relic, or, you know, maybe base Elaine's relic will be good, who knows, or maybe Elat or Liz will get a decent relic, who knows. But if you want to, I mean, there's not a whole lot of fairies in the game, there's not, you know, too many goddesses in the game, so I think as far as it goes, it'll probably be a while before we either get new goddess or fairy relics. So it might, you might be better off just, you know, farming the deer or playing the deer, you know, at your leisure, and sort of just building up on the materials until then. But either way, that is pretty much it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what, you know, you're planning on making, if you already have a clear winner in mind. I know a lot of the Archangels are probably going to be the ones that people end up investing into the most, and that's completely understandable because they're probably the characters that get the most use out of, you know, fairies and goddesses, so it makes a lot of sense. So either way, thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to subscribe if you have not already, and I will see you guys in the next one.